Michael Allen is an entrepreneur and a businessman. He's also an author, and he's a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Leesburg. I met Michael at Rotary Means Business, which is a social activity for all 40 clubs. He's the founder of Surrender Your Hate LLC and Let Life Live Incorporated. He's had 30 years in pharmaceutical and before he saw religion. And if you would, please give a Rotary welcome to Michael Allen.
As you heard, I'm actually from Leesburg. I used to live in Atlanta for quite a while and during my pharmaceutical career. And I became a new member of the Rotary Club back in September. And so I attend the event in the meetings in Leesburg, again, my hometown. So I met Richard and several other Rotarians at the Clearmont Business Networking. And we got a chance to talk about life, God, service, etc. So I then got invited to be here, and I'm thankful for being here. So I think I'll just jump into this. I had a few minutes of presentation, a few slides that shouldn't take too long to go through them, but a couple of them might be an eye test for you. So I'll read through that, and then at the end, if you have questions of me, I'll be glad to answer those questions. So Rich said that I am the founder of Surrender Your Hate LLC, and I am also the founder, executive director of Let Life Live, Inc. Let Life Live is a 501c3 nonprofit, and all of this came to me about 5 years ago. And I won't bore you with the whole story, but Surrender Your Hate is the opposite of what the name says, that word hate. It usually gets some level of attention when people see the word hate, and then they also see the word surrender. So really, this is talking about peace and love. How can peace and love overcome hatred? How can peace and love help us move away from chaos, division, and violence? Gun violence is a real problem. So we'll talk a little bit about the problem of gun violence, but we're also going to talk about a little bit of the solutions that I see as a solution, as one of the solutions for helping us turn hate, dislike, anger, violence into peace, love, harmony, and unity. Ready? Ready to get started? All right. All right. So this is to kind of shock you just a little bit. So if you don't mind, from 2019 to 2024, gun violence became the #1 cause of death for our children and our teens, people under 18. It's a startling fact. Every day, more than 125 people in America are killed by guns. Gun homicide, the rate is 26 times more in the US than it is in other developed countries. There are more than 400 shootings, or have been more than 400 shootings since the Columbine incident. Columbine, if you might remember, occurred in April of 1999. That is an average of 16 school shootings per year over that 25 plus year span. And I think I heard there was a educator or two in the room. That is not something that we want happening. Bring it a little bit closer to home. Florida averages 3,100 deaths by guns every year. Now, those numbers are split out in homicide as well as in suicide. Gun violence costs Florida well over $40 billion per year. 67%, almost 7 out of 10 schools that happen to be majority minority is where these gun violence school shootings are occurring. So that's a part of the problem. This is also part of the problem. I started to update this slide a little bit before I came, but I figured I'd just go ahead and leave it as I created it a few days after the second day in January. So what this says is, what are we going to do to end this in 2025 and beyond? And the reason I asked that question is because 2 days into 2025, there were 200 shootings in America. 50 states, at least 4 per state, if you will. I think my math is right. 35 people were injured in New Orleans on New Year's Day by guns. 10 people, 16 to 20 years of age, were shot in Queens, New York on New Year's Day. In Kankakee, Illinois, 2 brothers died and 5 people were shot in a gun violence incident. Stray bullets killed a woman, as you might have heard on the news here, in Kissimmee, believed to be celebratory fire. A 6-year-old was killed in Omaha, Nebraska on New Year's Eve due to a stray bullet, which is believed to also have been celebratory fire. A 16-year-old was shot in Chester, Pennsylvania, also for celebratory fire. First 2 days. To me, that's a real problem. So, I was introduced as an author. I am proud to be a new author. I'm actually working on a second book, and that I hope you'll support and buy. But the current book is called 31 Days of Surrender, Respecting Life Every Day. And if you allow me to, I'll just read a little bit on the back cover to kind of set the stage of why I think and how I think much of what we all have to offer, which I'm going to ask you as a call to action at the end to join me in helping to reduce and educate people on the challenges of gun violence and how conflict resolution and anger management in the schools as well as in our communities can be a major help in changing the tide of gun violence. So, can you picture a world where trauma is replaced by understanding, where anger diminishes and conflicts are peacefully resolved, where gun violence no longer exists? 31 Days of Surrender, Respecting Life Every Day is a guide to making that a reality. I'll break down the first part of the book's intent and purpose and design. It is written based on a relationship with parents and children that needs to be improved so that when they go out of the house or when they're home by themselves, they're not thinking homicide or suicide. And one way of doing that is sharing our values, our faith, our belief system, and modeling those behaviors. So the first part of the book, those 31 days, I started to do 28 or 30, but I figured, I'll go ahead and stretch it to 31 because the number of days within many of the months that we go in. And I want this to be continual. So the first part of the book speaks to kind of the fruits of the Spirit and a little description of how I see and how the Bible has taught me what some of those fruits happen to me. So I suggest that as you read it, as you share it with your children, your grandchildren, explain what those words mean to you and what those concepts means to you. The second part of the book talks about conflict resolution, making good decisions, choosing your friends, being obedient, managing your anger, etc. So I do have some books up here as well if you choose to purchase one, or you can go out on my website and take a look at that, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute, okay? So what is the mission of Surrender Your Hate? The mission is to inspire us to look within inside ourselves. Thus actually the name of my second book, hopefully coming this year. That book will be called Heart Set. I'll let you think about that for a minute. So if we look inside ourselves, then we can help acknowledge what's going on and undo some of the challenges that we all have ourselves about how we see race, how we see ethnicities, how we see nationalities, and with an intention to start loving to help end, surrender, let go of hatred. The mission for Let Life Live, which again, they're kind of combined, the for-profit, if you will, and the nonprofit, is to take a stand by standing down against gun violence. Again, reminding everyone that peace and love will actually win in the end. You guys believe that? All right, thank you. The vision is, there we go, a world where every human's life is valued as much as the other person values their own life. Think about that as well. If we could do that, wow, we would end a lot of challenges that we have. God said, feed my sheep, but he also means protect and let our lives continue. The purpose: to share God-inspired and directed principles, morals, and values with each human to affect peaceful change in thinking, believing, and behaving toward another person every day. Back to the book. At the end of the book, it says, respecting life every day. So every day means daily. So if we do these things, mission, vision, purpose, every day, 31 days, each month, each year, we'll be on the right track to letting peace and love have its rightful place. What do I believe in? What does Surrender Your Hate believe in? These are our tenets. I'm not going to read each and every one of them, but my mantra became the first one probably about when I was maybe 24, 25. As I continued to grow in my faith, righteousness, peace, and joy are what I seek and what I hope we all seek. If you don't have your own life mantra, you're welcome to, kind of borrow mine, and you can keep it as well. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in humility. I believe that it's okay to feel, believe, and to hope. And I hope you guys feel the same way. It's okay to feel, believe, and to hope. When I was in corporate, I was told that hope is not a strategy. Yes, it is. Okay, it's a personal strategy. So listen, let us all do something to lead our children, to lead this current and this next generation into more of a value state. And forgive me, I don't mean to offend anyone when I use the word values, but I do think that's part of the heart challenge that we have and how we see life. And these are some of the things that I believe can help us change that and kind of get back to some old values, some old Leesburg values, where the village helped raise me, and when I did something that my mama didn't like, she knew it before I got home, right? And you guys probably did the same thing, right? So I pray that we can inspire positive behavior. I pray that we can have a more of a community mindset, become less selfish people. And if we do that, again, the last one on there says, let life live and stop shooting and killing each other. Now, this is the bit of the eye test. So I'm just going to read the first line of each of the 4 points here. We promote harmonious and intentional interactions to overcome violent behaviors. The second one, we inspire people to believe, have faith, to hope, and to feel good about what they do to show one another love. We also, my commercial, market merchandise that states the message of surrendering your hate in an honest, respectful, but bold way. One of those ways is the shirt that I happen to have on, and I'll step around just for a second. Can you guys see that?
Be a peacemaker. Be a peacemaker.
What does it say, Dan?
Be a peacemaker.
So be a peacemaker came to me a few weeks ago, and I rushed to my graphics person and my web people and said, okay, hey, God gave me another thing to put on there. So I'm asking you to be a peacemaker. I am standing before you as a peacemaker. Matthew 5:9 says, being a peacemaker makes us a child of God. So you have several other items on that website if you choose to buy that. I actually put a cute little teddy bear on there too, and the teddy bear says, "Be a peacemaker."
I thought it said be a pacemaker. That would-
Well, sometimes we might need those too. I did sell those a long time ago. The fourth one is we conduct workshops, conferences, and web-based forums to help de-escalate potentially violent actions. So just to give you a top line overview of not only our tenants, but what this is all about. And I'm asking you to join in support of Surrender Your Hate and Let Life Live, and share that within your respective communities. If you believe being a peacemaker is a good thing, I believe being a peacemaker is a good thing. I know Rotarians believe in service and being peacemakers. That's what brought me to the Rotarian family. Your platform, your national, your international platform on peace. So this is a public safety initiative as well. You're going to see some repeats in here. So once again, I won't go through everything, but I stand before you to do more of God's will in this fourth quarter of my life, and, not to be offensive, but, some of us are in the second quarter, some of us in the third quarter, and some of us like me are in the fourth quarter. So let's do good. Let's do the service. Let's do God's will, And the last piece on there, it says, reach people on each continent, worldwide, globally. There, according to statistics at the end of last year, somewhere around November, we reached 8 billion people. Since that time, that number has grown to about 8.2, 8.3 billion people. So we got a lot of work to do, to get around the world with our peace initiative. I'm going to ask you to read this with me. And we just did the Pledge of Allegiance. This is a pledge that I like to proposition and share with you guys and propose that in addition to what we say in Rotary, that we can begin to, share such a pledge. Not to be too forward, but this pledge came to me standing in the shower one morning, and I actually fell out of the shower trying to get to my computer to write this down. So I'll start off. I pledge to surrender my hate in any and every form. I make this pledge to God and humanity. I will let life live regardless of differences, and I will choose to live in peace every day with my fellow human. I believe love conquers all hate. Thank you. These are the workshops that we put on. I'm just going to quickly give you two of them. They can be done by themselves. Usually takes about an hour. So from a session like this or meeting with Rotary or in the community, or if schools allow, and we're working on some things. I'm also a partner with Moms Demand Action and another group called ACEs Matter, and they are both focused on reducing violence and helping people have a better life as they continue to grow and continue to live. So these are 10 conflict resolution tips and ideas and methods that we share during our respective workshops with people. This can be done like this, in a session like this, or it can be done online, or it can be done on a one-on-one conversation if necessary. You can't have conflict resolution, in Michael's mind, without de-escalation. So they can go together or they can be done separately. You'll see some repeats in there as well. Listening, I believe, is a key to gaining understanding, and we need to model that behavior, teach it to our children. Controlling our anger is another way to de-escalate a situation and also avoid conflict. My cousin is a assistant superintendent of schools in the Atlanta area. He was a football coach and a biology teacher in Boca Raton when we first got out of school several years ago. And since that time, he has shared some interesting stories with me on how people behave. And where I'm going with this is that the controlling of the anger and the conflict and the fighting, often that he saw in his school system, started at home. You know, and I don't mean to say negative things about parents, but the parent would come to the school when the kid was in trouble and literally try to fight my cousin, blaming him as the reason that the kid's in trouble. And once he saw and interacted with some of these parents, he knew why the kid was in trouble. I'll leave you with that thought as well. All right. So what do I want you to do? I want you to become a peacemaker like me. I want you to support and join the movement of Surrender Your Hate and Let Life Live as Rotarians. I like to speak, I like to share, I like to interact with Rotarians across the country, you know, but I need your support, I need your encouragement, you know, and I need your connections, if you will. Advocate peace and love over hate and gun violence. And I'll quickly stop right there, and maybe I'll shock you, maybe I won't, because I'm from Leesburg, I'm a country boy. I'm a gun owner. Anybody bold enough to raise their hand and say that they're gun owners?
Quite a few.
The reason I said that is because I don't want you thinking this is a take the gun away. This isn't, you know, I'm not saying that. You know, this is more of a, you know, I bought my gun for sport, for hunting, for fun, and unfortunately for defense of home and defense of family, which is really probably the only way that they should be used. You know, when they're in schools, 16 shootings per year, you know, school shootings, 400 school shootings since Columbine. What you saw the first 2 days of January of this year, we got to do better. I believe the book, 31 Days, if you read it and you share it with people, I believe it will inspire and touch people. It's going to be a slow process. It's a solution, not the solution. God is the solution. All right. Donate, help me find grants. If you so choose, we can become, you know, partners, financial sponsorships. And I see this guy over here has a financial planner on his tag. You know, I won't let him out today without talking to him. Again, book me, book my team as conflict resolution, de-escalation, anger management, workshop leaders, conversationalists. Let's help people return home safely. And with that, I'll take questions.
Phil's got a microphone.
Questions? David?
I don't have a question, just a comment that this fits perfectly with Rotary's mission. When asked why I am a Rotarian, I frequently say, because we fight for world peace. We don't talk about it as much as we used to, but we have 7 peace centers around the nation. February 20th, 22nd, there's an International Peace Rotary International Peace Conference that's completely sold out. My only point is, as Rotarians, we're on board with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, along the same lines, I can see 2 tremendous places for you. One in schools, because all the kids need this stuff. And the other thing is prisons. You don't talk to Rich about what they do in the prisons. Recidivism is one of the biggest problems we have, and this could really stop a lot of that.
Thank you. I totally agree with that. You know, I started to work with a few organizations around here, and a couple of them are trying to help with recidivism, and they're doing some wonderful things in job placement as well. So your point's well taken.
I just like to say, great presentation. I think you're kind of preaching to the choir here, which is awesome. But sadly, I'd like to remind people that it's not a new problem. 1948, on this day, Mahatma Gandhi was shot. So,
yeah. And unfortunately, one of the stats in the beginning talked about every day, 125 people are shot every day.
I had a question. I was curious, how do you determine the cost of your book? And is there supplemental or other material for those who maybe couldn't afford a book?
Yes. coming soon with the supplemental materials, looking at turning it into a bit of a workbook as well. I was about to do an audio book, but I got advised against doing an audio book from a marketing perspective. How did I determine the cost of the book? And working with my publisher and looking at similar, books of the nature, it kind of ranges between like $15 to about $25. And so I decided to kind of, come right in the middle of those two numbers. Are you a budding author?
Michael, if you would, I'll take the opportunity for last question. Calvin said you're kind of talking to the choir. How do you plan on getting your message into the, I have to be very careful here, the demographic or population areas that really need to hear this wonderful message?
Well, starting right here, the choir can be foot soldiers, supporters as well. People I don't know. And if you are moved by this, if we are a part of the same choir, then we can help me, schedule time with them. Again, I'm a new member in the Leesburg Club. So my president, John Bernardin, is beginning to help with the same thing. I mentioned the name to a couple of you that I met earlier. He is one of the pillars of the Leesburg Lake County community. His name is Mr. Ken Bragg, from Lake Tech, Votech years ago. So Mr. Bragg is one of the people there that's helping. Another young man that started the anti-bullying program in Leesburg High School. I'm starting to work with him as well. Locally here, I have a couple of Democratic and Republican, Congress people and legislators that we're working with. I was in Tallahassee last year asking for a conflict resolution bill to be supported by the state so that we could, take monies and do this as a pilot at least. So we're working with several groups. We'll be back in Tallahassee. That bill that got voted down, but hopefully it'll get passed this year. And if so, then this will be more accepted in some of the schools, working with some of the charter schools as well.
One thing many of you might not know is that the program that Michael mentioned in Leesburg, when 6 years ago, when the program started, Leesburg High had about 1,200 students. It was the school in Leesburg high school students didn't want to go to because there were continuous fights and a great deal of hostility. And the Leesburg Rotary Club under Dave Vandeveld started a program of anti-bullying and turned the invisible majority who were unseen and were kind of pushed aside by the group that was doing the fighting. In fact, they had weekly fights, weekly expulsions in Leesburg when Rotary started that program. The first class that graduated that had been in the program all 4 years had 406% more AP credits than the class before it. 406%. The enrollment went from 1,200 to 1,700, and the faculty turnover went to almost zero. We're continuing that program in the coming year, and we're trying to move it not only to high schools, but to middle schools. Most people don't realize this, but if you can find the list of the schools with the most fights, 7 of the 10 in Florida are middle schools, and the high schools are typically 3 times as many students as the middle schools. So you can see the base of the problem. If we can actually turn conflict to kindness starting in the middle schools,
I like that one.
we'll be doing a lot to further the program that Michael is promoting. And Michael, I saw you in Leesburg, so
Yeah.
it's good to see you again. We're
Yeah, you
glad
as
you're
well.
there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Good
you.
program.